What do you mean you don't have hot sauce? This is Texas. We put Tabasco on cornflakes. You can play it safe if you want to, but you gotta risk it to get that biscuit. When it comes to business, you gotta look out for the cookout. That's how we do it in Texas. What do you mean my accent is too southern? Well, we're fixing to get it on Solve for X. Welcome to Solve for X, the podcast where curiosity meets collaboration. I'm Dr. Rick Fernandez, your host on this journey into the heart of education and innovation. Welcome back to another episode of Solve for X, where we're solving for K-12's most complex problems. I'm joined by founder, CEO of RP Impact Partners, Ryan Patenaude. Ryan, you see my Celtic green on just for you, so I appreciate. There you go. FEV Tutor. I like that. I never noticed that in the past. I was looking for the Brown or the Tatum jersey in the back there.
No, man, I appreciate you wearing green, Rick. I know you're not a Celtics fan and you're down in Texas rooting for some other great teams, although the Spurs looked amazing the other day. But I appreciate you doing me a solid with the green shirt, and we got trying to channel a championship trophy over here to Boston. But I appreciate you, man, and that doing me.
I see that. Yeah, no, I'm a Rockets fan, Spurs fan, anything really Texas. So I'm sure we can talk some basketball in a little bit, but. For those that may not know RP Impact Partners, some of your career work, can you just give us kind of an overview of where you started? How'd you get into Edtech? I know you're a founder, and just share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And number one, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I have a deep respect and admiration for the work that you've done and you are doing in K-12 education. So it means Appreciate a lot. I know you might not be in your home office today based on the background. So your dedication to this work is
only for you on spring break. I'm pulling it out for you. So
appreciate you. So for those who don't know me at home, my name's Ryan. I am lucky enough to be a co-founder of a company called FEV Tutor. What we did was we grew that organization from $0 to $50 million of revenue per year without any outside investment, which we're really proud of. And what that meant specifically for students in education is that we were the largest high impact tutoring organization in the market. We grew that from 2009 through 2022 and made just a lot of change for critical equity and achievement gaps for students. Why did I do that? And Rick knows a lot of this. I come from a family of public educators, so in my DNA, I got 50% sports fan. Maybe that's shifting to 60. Rick, you see all this stuff behind me, WWE fan and stuff like that. But
oh yeah.
My mom is a 45-year public educator in New York State. She's a reading teacher by trade. My sister is a high school math teacher in Rochester City Schools in Western New York at a high school that's on a 13-year transformation plan. And my grandmother was a science teacher. So those are my why, my inspiration for why we do this work, why it means a lot to me. And current day, Rick, what I do now, and thank you for asking, with RP Impact Partners in April of 2025, I started this organization to break forward the maybe 18 years of experience and work and failings and learning and everything that we did to organically grow FEV Tutor through driving, academic outcomes and creating meaningful partnerships with school districts and K-12 leaders like you and learning from them to try to bring that work forward. And so at RP Impact Partners, we're a growth consulting firm where we partner with Edtech companies that align with our mission and values. They have a need. There's my thumbs up. They have a need to have, not a nice to have product, right? You said challenges and opportunities in K-12 education. Somebody that is going to move the dial for key priorities. And then number 3, have high growth potential. And so we work with those organizations on go-to-market strategies, how we grow, where we go for conferences, how we show up, right? Like you and I talk a lot about how do we deliver messaging that is at the executive level that aligns with strategic priorities of school districts and stuff that you and I and colleagues like Jacob Cantor and others chop it up about all the time around how do we get better, especially if we have a great product. And so we've been doing that work for almost a year now. It's really exciting. I think it allows me to use the best and brightest of what I've learned over those 18 years and bring that to multiple organizations that really have a chance to meaningfully impact K-12 education. So really appreciative of knowing you, being able to tell the story, and most importantly, trying to get better together.
Yeah, man. And so if you go back to the genesis of the idea for tutoring, you've got a family history of educators. How did you know, when did it come to the point it was like, here is a gap we can fill? Do you remember kind of the genesis of the idea?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Rick. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of services that are available to those who are able to purchase them or afford them, right? And then there may not be a lot of opportunities for those who can't, right? And so I think that's the genesis of where we decided that we would try to use something like tutoring as a force for good. So imagine a big market for business to consumer tutoring where parents can afford to take their students to a tutoring center. They can uh, pay a Princeton University tutor, right? Like, and there are a lot of folks who can do that, right? But you and I know that unfortunately, the majority of families and students, especially in the districts that we might care about the most, they don't have those resources. And so where the paradigm shift happened, Rick, was that we know tutoring works. It has the highest effect size of any intervention out there, especially one-on-one tutoring. That's what research tells us. We also know that tutoring largely is for those who can't afford it and can have those opportunities. And so because of my family's background and the work that they've done in high needs districts and what I saw my mom and sister do laying it on the line every day for students, I said, what if we could take that concept and bring that into K-12 education and do it with a strategy, do it with something that snaps into a district ecosystem and do it for the students that may not have those opportunities
Right.
to bring them a similar or better tutoring service because we believe that tutoring will work. And then the last thing I'll say about that, Rick, is when we started, there was a lot of software programs, and there still are today, as you know, that are just asynchronous software. Students get on and they go through it. But we know that that's an imperfect solution for probably the students that we were thinking about for tutoring. And so we said, hey, like, what if we blended high powered tech enabled services together to be able to give students those supports that we needed? So that's sort of the conversation that we had. And where I came in, I was like, I think we should take a bet on ourselves. And I think we should bring this directly to K-12 districts. I just think there's a huge challenge. And what I see today is a lot of in-person tutoring and a lot of in-house tutoring. And I see tons of software programs. What if we met somewhere in the middle? We think it could be really special. And turns out we were onto something.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. In thinking of all of the ways as a high school principal, former middle school principal, in some of the most impoverished areas in Houston, shout out to all my Houston ISD colleagues, but trying everything. I mean, you get to a point where you're throwing darts at the wall because you're trying to make an impact, and your timelines and your urgency are so shortened, right? You don't have a 5-year window, right? Because our philosophy always was, that child has one time in second grade, one time in ninth grade, right? And so if there's some 5-year plan, well, you're missing a whole chunk of students because they're counting on you to fix it now. And that weighs heavy on principle. So we're always looking for solutions that can add value without taxing resources. And back then we were very fortunate. Shout out to Terry Greer, the former superintendent at Houston ISD. He gave us the resources we needed, but that is no longer the case. Where districts are strapped for cash, strapped for resources, strapped just to find teachers. So there's a huge need. I would argue that there's still a huge need in that gap that you guys help fill. From the business aspect, because this has been, a great learning experience ever since I've come to the private side. But when you're building something, how did you come by your business acumen? You talked about not taking outside investment. Where did you learn some of those things as you're building a company? Because I find that very fascinating. That's a skill set that I've never had to. I don't know it. I'm trying to build it now. So any of your insight on, all right, these are some of the things that I was thinking, or some of the people maybe I leaned on to kind of get some insight in how we should structure this.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rick. And look, where I am today is based on other folks believing in me, investing time and energy and effort in me, and me listening, hopefully, and trying to learn and trying to deploy what they taught me as quickly as I can. And so you're right, like we do it together. And the only way I got here is through many folks who taught me a lot of things about business. A couple of vice presidents of sales and my first job in healthcare. Their names are Dennis Beastman out on the West Coast and Chris Blue here in Boston area. And those guys were mentors for me back when I was started. You might have seen some of my LinkedIn posts. I was a lead generation associate, which is like code for
Yeah,
SDR. And I sat
I've
in the
seen some of
cubicle.
those old snapshots. Yeah.
You see, I'm down for dollars, but what I was doing, I was trying to learn as quickly as I could from these really successful sales leaders. Chris and Dennis were amazing human beings. Probably the person that I learned the most from on how to run a business that was both successful and growing is Anirudh Bahidi. He is the other co-founder of FEV Tutor and the main investor in that work that we did. He allowed me to be a partner with him in this journey. And he both, besides being a sort of a visionary, by the way, he went to UT. So so he says y'all with a thick Indian accent.
I love it.
You want to meet one of the most brilliant people that I believe in the world, someone who's one of the most successful people I've ever been around, Anirudh. And you want to hear a thick Indian accent saying y'all, that's Anirudh Bahidi. And he loves Texas and he loves UT and he's a Hook'em Horns fan. So that's a little Texas thing for you, just to throw you a bone there. But
I love it. Yeah.
that he taught me so much. He has a financial and a business background. So, but he also has a technology background. So thinking about how do we build the technology with cost efficiencies and iterations, we ended up with 5,000 tutors in the country of India. So tech-enabled services with both high quality and cost efficiency. So he had the acumen and wherewithal to be able to build actual operational facilities and scale that along with technology. And then he taught me about discipline. Ryan, like, we invest in the organization when we grow. It's not the other way around, right? We're not going to put a bunch of money into the organization without knowing that we have a product market fit, not knowing that we are solving a challenge, not knowing that people are willing to buy it, right? And ultimately, what
Yeah.
someone is willing to buy, Rick, you know this is it's actually the market tells us what to do. So we had the concept, but you may have seen one of my posts, I think it was yesterday. We can talk about this later, but we learned from our districts on how to iterate and evolve the product. But I would say Anirudh taught me so much about how to make sure that we're investing when or where do we take chances when we need to. Where do we need to invest? Where do we want to invest to grow? In addition to that, what I'll also say, as I grew into my career, we were able to work with when we were going to sell the company. We worked with Titan Partners. So they are they had a consulting firm and an investment bank specifically for education and Edtech. So they're like a very specific persona. They're amazing humans. When we sold the company between 2021 and 2022, what I learned from Vivek Kamath, Chris Curran, Matt Lavelle was a masterclass in someone let me in the room, man. And I was like, all right, if I'm in the room, I'm going to learn and I'm going to use it to my advantage to
I
try
love
to
it.
for good. So with those, they taught me how to position, how to analyze data, like what matters to investors, right? What matters to organizations. And then, last thing I'll say is that Alpine Investors acquired FEV Tutor in 2022, and being in that ecosystem for the 3 years that I was allowed me another masterclass in the most sophisticated, most successful private equity leaders in the world. And just being immersed in that culture and learning from them, the supports that they gave me, they allowed me to take an M&A class, mergers and acquisition. They put me in
Yeah.
some of the smartest. It's like Wharton School in Pennsylvania. It's Northwestern Kellogg School. It's Stanford. These are these CEOs that they're putting in place and these operating executives, along with Graham Weaver and Mark Strauch, the the co-founders and president and CEO of Alpine. Like, I'm heavily in debt to them from what I was able to learn and take that forward. So there's like an evolution of who you learn from along the way, and those are some of the most important people. But I would tell anyone here is that if somebody lets you in a room, especially one that you might not think you're supposed to be in, well, you're there for a reason, and you should listen, learn, and damn it, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So, and I've been very lucky, Rick, to be in the room with some amazing human beings, that most of who taught me everything I know. And the most recent version of that for the last several years is someone named Dr. Rudy Crew. He's the former superintendent of Miami-Dade County and chancellor of New York City DOE. He's also a professor at USC who coaches and mentors aspiring leaders in K-12 education. And what I know about how to engage with a top 10, top 50 district, and what it really means to show up for these district leaders. That's all Dr. Crew. I also, just a shout out to Dr. Crew, any minute in time that I'm talking to him, I feel like I'm getting better, faster, stronger, and I'm just becoming a better human. So there's a lot of people in there. There's probably a lot more where that came from, Rick.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Those are the people, right? Like you and I talking, getting better, like people that have different experiences, people that have similar experiences. Just to me, the network and the relationships are the most important thing out here.
Man, what I love about that is you just explain what all educators aspire to be, which is kind of a lifelong learner. We all say we are, and then times times change, or there's you change your routines, and it's hard, especially during this time of change. But we have to remember that mindset that it's not a linear path, and you have to continue to learn. And that's one of the things that I found being on the private side. I was real nervous about are people. I've got some blind spots, obviously, because I've been a public servant for 20 years, and I'm jumping into something that I have very little knowledge. How do I get help, right? Because I had a network in education, but now I have to build a network from scratch. What I found is, man, if you're just ask questions and you're humble and you truly want to learn, people will share a great deal of information. They see somebody willing to learn and hungry to learn, and it's amazing how they'll, the people that you think you should never be in the room with, very much like you stated, they'll help you. Everybody loves someone that's willing and hungry to learn and going to soak up and ask questions and pick their brain. So, I mean, that's a great mindset to have, and kudos to you for like continuing that pattern. What I did want to ask, so as you're building, and you talked about your family a little bit. Did you kind of use them as a sounding board for something, or did they have some strong opinions as y'all were building and you were kind of sharing some things? And was there any back and forth where they was like, "Oh no, don't do that. You need to do this," because of their experience?
You know what? That's a great question. I try to put myself in my mom and my sister's shoes when we were building this, and so like little things that my mom would tell me along the way. I'd ask her for some advice, and I'd say, she'd say, "Hey Ryan, like you should email leaders in education because you know what? I do look at my emails, and if I want to reply to it, I'll save it for later, and if I don't, I'll delete it." There's like no problem in doing that, right? Because some people are like, "Do I email? Do I
Yeah.
call? What do I do?" So I'm asking her questions about like, how do I get in touch? Like, what's the best way to communicate or like get my message out to people? And as a microcosm of what I might ask her. Um, she's a reading teacher, so she does have a strong edge, I think, on like science and reading.
Was she correcting like your emails? Like, all right, that's
Yeah,
not grammatically correct.
like grammar's a lot better these days, Rick, with Claude, who's a genius at writing some emails. My own grammar stinks. My wife will tell you that. So I like the technology overlay now. Um, I would always ask my sister questions about her turnaround plan in Rochester. What they were doing, what they are doing is they are investing in great teachers. So they paid for her master's and potentially her PhD to get a doctorate. Um, Pay is 15 to 20% more, right? So if you're thinking about, and this is in the lowest performing school in Rochester City Schools, it's a public-private partnership now. It's a superintendent that they put for the one school, right? So it's sort of like what they did at Boston University back in the day with Chelsea Public Schools, where they had a
Ah,
private
yeah,
partnership, right? So, but imagine a world where, like, how do you get the best talent to stay and build capacity in the most opportunistic or the most challenging ecosystems? Well, what they had to do is they had to pay what teachers are
yeah.
worth. We all know that should be done, right? And they had to give them incentives. And then they rebuilt the ecosystem from scratch. There was like a 30% attendance rate when she started. So those are the things that I would ask them around. Um, it would be little things, or it would be try to just ask like her name's Brittany. Brittany, what's going on? Like how they set it up, like how do you guys operating? Like what successes have you had? And then things from my mom would be like, Mom, we're trying to get districts to sign contracts by December 31st because it means something to a company because that's our fiscal year. And my mom would be like, look, December 31st means nothing to a school district. They're just happy
That's
to,
right.
they need to go on break because they mentally need to do it. They deserve it. And they don't, doesn't nothing matter. Like it doesn't matter. They'll just sign it when they
Yeah,
get back. So you need to tell them, like, why does it matter to you? Right. You need to give them a good reason to potentially sign it. Like if you have a good relationship with them, hey, this will mean a lot to me because number one, we need to get you on the implementation calendar. Like number two, it would benefit me as a professional to get you to sign this now. Like it's meaningful and it would really mean a lot to me. Right. And if it doesn't matter if you sign it now or sign it on January 5th, gosh darn it, would you sign it this
yeah.
week? Right. So, those are the things that we would we would talk about. I think I stopped short of getting any type of like science of reading or reading stuff because my mom would just dominate me in that area. And my sister's like a math guru, so I would, you know, don't want to get into any math conversations with him.
Yeah, you weren't talking. Yeah, you weren't talking instruction. You were just talking. I
I was talking.
understand.
She was a college catcher at Nazareth College, and she played on the hoops team. She was like a 4-year starter. So we had talked some sports, but if otherwise, if I go on the other side, I might get dominated. I also might get dominated or too. Like all props to her.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, last question about the past, and then we'll transition to the future. But so, can you share a little bit about the experience when y'all are going through the sale of the company? Like the feeling, was it like, oh, this is awesome? Obviously, I'm not getting your business, but I'm sure there was a financial benefit. Was there a little bit of pain because, man, I've been working on this, so it was hard to let some of it go? Can you just talk a little bit about that time period when it was coming to fruition that you were selling?
Of course. Yeah. Look, I had no idea what I was in for. So, like I told you, Vivek came with the Matt Lavella type partners, gave me and Anirudh, or me specifically, a very fast master class in how we needed to show up. And so I had no idea what it meant to sell a company. I didn't know what a management presentation was. When someone said fireside chat, I was like, what do you mean? Where am I going? Like what fire? Like
Are we camping? What's going on?
I don't think I can build a fire outside. I'm not great at camping, but I might be able to build one in my fireplace 50-50 shot, right? When we didn't lose power, luckily, in that blizzard. So I didn't have to demonstrate my fire building skills. So um, I believe that between early 2021, when we started the sales process, in July of 2022, I learned more about professionalizing a business. And I'm assuming if someone was going to get an MBA over 2 or 3 years, like I got one and more during that time. And it's because of what you and I just spoke about. I
Right.
listened, I got better. Matt and Vivek would coach us. And just so you know, we went through 2 processes. We went through an initial process in 2021 where we brought FEV Tutor to market. And like, here's things that people don't know. You have to try to package up and sell the business, which is its own beast. You have to meet with people. You have to get a big data room together. You have to sort of do it quietly too, because you can't disrupt the business, right? Because you're a growing, healthy business, and
Yeah.
right. So it's very hard to do, um, and you have to hit your numbers, right? So I was running all of go to market, all of selling, marketing, customer success. So I'm like solely responsible for hitting all of our bookings numbers, and so we have to do this process and simultaneously like continue to run an awesome company for students and run it in a way where, the only reason that we're looking for a partner to sell this is to try to bring it all to the next level, right? Like we want to do better for our team. We want to invest in the company in a more meaningful way. We want to scale. And it's really hard to do that when you're bootstrapping it, right? So it's for a good intention at what we were doing, but we started to hit all of our numbers and we hit them. And so we decided through really great advice and like important stuff that was someone like Titan Partners would do. They said, Ryan and Anirudh, like, we believe you have a higher growth trajectory than you had and you're more valuable than you were in this first process. So we think that you should bring it back out to market because we think you'll have a different set of potential strategic buyers,
Wow.
large organizations, right? So for the first time, we pitched to different types of private equity and strategic buyers. And I thought we did a pretty good job, the best that we could in the first round. We learned a ton. And then Anirudh was the biggest, bravest thing that he could have done was say, okay, let's do it again, because it's like a bird in hand versus 2 in the bush, right? And he's the largest
Yeah.
shareholder in this conversation. And so like it took guts for him to say, to trust. It took guts for Titan to say, because they could have taken the win on the first time too, but they were like, guys, you're only gonna do this once, probably, right? So although Anirudh did it before that, and he'll probably do it again, but this might be a one-time event, so you want to do it the right way. So it took guts for them to tell us the truth, and for Anirudh and team to say, "All right, let's go do it." And so in 2022, we started a new process where we were now selling to much larger financial institutions and strategics, and that second process was even more successful than the first process. And in July 2022, we were grateful and blessed to have a partner to acquire us. for our next phase of growth. And so I told my wife this all the time. It was very grueling. It was hard. Our son was growing up. He's 9 now. He was probably, my math is going wrong here, like 5 years old, like 5 or 6 years old, trying to run the company. Amazing human beings like Daniel Hebert, who was functionally the third co-founder of FEV Tutor, only wanted what was great for the company. So he was under the tent, but we didn't have a ton of people under the tent. And like, he's a huge reason why we grew and a huge reason why we were able to articulate our value to the market and exit the company. But I would just say, like, for founders out there, you'll never know what this process looks like. It's probably a one-time shot. And, I would always advise to get a partner like Titan Partners or someone like that as an investment bank, not just to try to juice the most amount of money out of it, because I know that that's not what it's about, right? But to make sure that you are articulating the greatest value of what you built, because what you built probably took a lot of blood, sweat, tears, like ownership, like you sacrificed a lot in the world, right? And to your point, what did it feel like to sell it? Well, it was a bittersweet moment. I continued on for 3 years as part of the executive leadership team, but it was never the same as it was when we were building it. I was proud of everyone in the organization, but I think we had hit a point where in order to do something, in order to realize our potential, we had to do something, different, right? And continuing to run it in the way that we were, especially me, I had never operated anything even close to being $50 million. And so to think that I would be able to come in and be the guy who's going to take it from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 100, like, you have to be, like you said, you have to have humility. You have to understand what's going on. You have to read the room. You have to have some type of EQ in this world to the extent that you can. And so that's where I think it's like an interesting point to think about, like, do we stay and continue to do this, and what's our potential versus what is our potential in having some capital and maybe some professional leadership in the world. And so I felt proud of everything that we did. I also felt proud of everything we did between 2022 and 2025 and all of the amazing human beings in FEV Tutor India and FEV Tutor US that were really the heartbeat of why we were who we were. So that's a credit to others, right? And but I will tell you that, it felt good, and it also felt sad, and it also felt exciting, and it also felt disappointing. It felt a lot of different ways. But I'm glad it happened the way it happened. And I would never be who I am today. I would never be able to start RP Impact Partners and continue that work forward if I didn't go through that selling process and surround myself with those, world-class individuals. I'll tell you that right now.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's probably a personal question, but I'm just fascinated. I don't get to ask, I don't have an opportunity to hear those type of things of the kind of the push and pull of going through that process. And I can't imagine the stress. I'm sure highly stressful, highly emotional. Your family has to go through it with you, so, I mean, thank you for sharing that. All right, let's jump into the current state. And I feel like that if you look around social media, whether it be LinkedIn or Instagram or X or what have you, Edtech is taking a little bit of a beating. What is your sense of the state of Edtech, if you will, kind of where it's sitting and where do you think it'll go?
That's a great question. And appreciate you asking. I'm like you, like I try to call myself a learning executive. And so one thing that you posted on LinkedIn, which I thought was very insightful and forward thinking, is when you called the EdTech market a risk on marketplace. And that means, like, this is where we should be taking risks to drive high potential opportunities in the future, right? And so my view is a couple of things. One, something like the pandemic and COVID, although it was disruptive innovation and I think moved education, 20 plus years forward fast when it comes to leveraging technology to bring systems to scale. I also think in the EdTech market, it created a false reality. So think about 2% interest rates on homes. So you and I have spoken about this. It did exist, but it really doesn't exist, right? It may never exist again. It caused a global pandemic for that to happen. And so think about, like, EdTech through that lens. There was an emergency, an urgent time where education needed something. In EdTech, they responded to that need, but it was sort of done in unfortunately, like a emergency, but a false reality. And so what I think happened was, because of the nature of that time, it caused some some bad habits. It caused some overinvestment, including what we did. If you look at the timing of the FEV Tutor exit, like I'd be naive not to say that we exited the market at a time where we were exponentially growing, which had several factors, including the fact that ESSER funding was there, right? And so,
Sure.
but like in reality, education and EdTech, it's the long game, right? And so because we're coming out of this, like what we're calling a fiscal cliff, but we're actually just coming back to stability and consistency. Um, and I think K-12 education is trying to use what we learned over the course of time to create what efficiency, consolidation, outcomes driven and performance driven contracts, and who's the most innovative in the market, because now budget dollars are shrinking. Maybe they don't exist. They certainly don't exist in the way they did in the pandemic, but they're coming back to normalcy. So I think there's a lot of EdTech innovation that got spun up or begat of that ESSER time, and they may or may not have fully understood like what the market actually is, and that includes investors, right? And so when all those things are happening at once, it can cause like a snapback. So my view is there was a snapback in EdTech investing because of what had happened during the ESSER and the pandemic, which is completely understandable, by the way. And there's nothing else that probably could have been done during that time, just to acknowledge like logic and reason. And moving forward, like it's not like that anymore. Some of the work that I do with go-to-market teams, how we set up commission plans, how we position the messaging, like it's going to be a lot more competitive, right? Your solution is going to have to be dialed in. It's going to have to drive outcomes for students. It's going to have to have another level of account executive, and it's not an order taking process anymore. It is a consultative selling, and it is a strategic partnership market. It always has been, and it always will be, regardless of what happened shortly of several years ago here. But Rick, I think it should be risk on. I think there's a huge opportunity specifically with AI, and I think you talk a lot about AI, and partnering with districts to create short, medium, and long-term plans for closing these equity and achievement gaps. I really think it's right in front of us, and it's going to take those companies who are willing to show up as great strategic partners, leverage technology, listen to these districts, and be willing to play a longer game, build a relationship, start small, right? But I think investors will start to see that this market will normalize, and there's a ton of upside in EdTech. And at the end of the day, Rick, like water finds its level. There's going to always be ebbs and flows in a market. And it will typically normalize. But I think I think you and I talk about the folks, when you see it at the bottom, that's when you want to strike. Like that's when you want to help, right? You don't want to get in there's not upside. You want to get in where you want to get your hands dirty when there's big challenges. That's the whole point of this podcast, right? I think those who are willing to get in when times are bad and there's real big challenges are those that can be the winners into the future.
You make some great points, and I was talking to Dr. Michael Connor, and I was liking in that COVID period and that false sense of just everybody had millions of dollars to spend. I was trying to make the point. It was like I was on steroids for 3 years playing hoop, right? And then I had to come back down to reality. All of a sudden, I was like, man, I'm not as fast, can't jump as high, and I had to figure out, all right, I got to get back to my strategy. Because I can't continue on doing those same things. And we were laughing about it, but very similar sentiments around where things are going to go and the risk on. I love that term, and being on, loving finance and all of the things that happen in the market. I said, man, education is now finally to the point where we've been so risk averse for so long, and all of these factors are pushing and pulling at the same time. Everything's exploding, and you got to be risk on. That means the district leadership has to be risk on, right? Because they're competing for students like they never had to before. And also the service industries that provide all of the things that K-12 now needs. And I'd like your take on something that some companies have felt like, well, there's less money, and so districts aren't going to need services or ed tech or you name it. And I said, I think it's exactly the opposite. I think districts are so strapped for personnel, and they don't have the resources to do the same things that they've always done. I think they will find some very trusted partners and stick with those partners long term to solve some of these things. And so I don't think it will be a pullback on services. I think it'll be a very scrutinized evaluation of services, and just your thoughts on kind of how I'm seeing it. What do you think in terms of that?
I appreciate chopping it up and working with you, and I'm learning a lot from you. And the analysis that we're talking heads here, I think that is 100% correct. K-12 is my view is K-12 is a services market, and districts partner with companies that they trust, that are reliable, and that solve for a challenge, that listen to them and solve for something that means it's meaningful for them. And so I think now more than ever, showing up in that way is gonna make the difference of who wins and loses in ed tech. I don't think it's any more complicated than be a strategic partner, be a great partner when you show up, and evolve and iterate along the way. And in that world, I think not only can you sell your core product, but you can be their trusted partner to help them with tangential services or products along the way, right? Because at the end of the day, districts, may want to consolidate. They don't want to have to manage and work with 100 disparate companies if 25 of those could be the ones that are providing the most value,
Yeah.
driving an ROI, right? Outcomes-based contracting, one of my partners, Paper and High Impact Tutoring, is doing one of the first outcomes-based contracts in Texas with Pflugerville ISD. We, FEV Tutor, did the very first outcomes-based contract back in, I think it was 2021, maybe 2022, with Dr. Scott Meary at Ector County ISD, who was doing tons of transformation work. And it works, right? Because it's aligned goals, right? But like you said, those are the type of organizations that are willing to put their own dollars on the line, their own outcomes and reputations on the line, that I think the districts want to see here. So imagine it's like a lot of feature selling versus value selling. It's a vendor versus a partner. Those are the conversations I think that you and I have a lot around organizations and how you can show up to play the long game in this marketplace.
I know I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got some things to do, but I do want to get your thoughts. Your work with your clients right now. What are some of the things, if a firm is going to go take a misstep, what are the top 2 or 3 that you're like, all right, they're probably going to do this, and realize that that's not the way to do it?
Absolutely. Messaging is number one. So
Okay.
you could have the best product in the world, but if you can't articulate the value to an executive level, C-level person at district level, you're going to have tough sledding. So I always say measure twice, cut once. That was begat of our when we sold the company with Vivek and Matt and those guys. Eventually, we were like, measure twice, cut once, right? Let's plan. Let's make sure we have it all dialed before we go and pitch or do something. And so I just see a lot of messaging it's feature, but it's like not spending the time that one would want to or need to be able to articulate the value of the product or service in a way that is the best way to do it for your ICP, your ideal customer profile, right? That's number one. 2 is like general go-to-market strategy, including conference strategies. I see a lot of organizations pumping a bunch of money into conferences that they think are sexy, big booths. It's a lot of flash. I think you and I say, let's go
Yeah.
through this door. Talas, right? The
Yeah.
Texas Outlaws Association with Dr. Thomas and Dr. Kennedy and you, right? And like, where are we going where we can get some real conversations with our ICP in districts that we really want to talk to? And how can that help move us forward? I'm on the strategic advisory board of the IEI conference with Doug Roberts and Tiffany Law. That is one where I think we just were at one in San Antonio. We were
Yeah.
past Nearby in Texas, right? We went there and had 11 meetings with districts that chose to meet with us, and we chose to meet with them. It was curated. It was a 30-minute meeting where we could meet, like we could pretty quickly get to, we think this might be potential, it might not be a potential, right? Alas, right? With Yuli,
Yeah.
never team, right? Like those are conferences that you and I have probably gone to that we see high value in. Yes, we have to be in an AASA. That's wild there. Yes, I'm going to go see the people I need to. I'm going to build relationships, but like I might have to pick my spots, right? So that's number 2, go to market strategy. Where are we going to conferences? Where are our sales reps? Like a lot of Rick, think about in the pandemic, we think sales reps can be based in, Rhode Island or Vermont, no offense to me up here, and they're going to sell over to California or Texas and they can be the rep. Well, you and I know that relationships matter, regional selling matters, being able to show up matters. And so how do we take what we have that did work during the pandemic and reset it into where are our hot zones in our regions, where are our sellers, where's customer success, where we have our customer success people, because it's most important to keep your partners, right? And then the third thing is more businessy, net revenue retention, NRR. Like at FEV Tutor, we had 150% net revenue retention when we were sold. What that means is your current number of clients that you have equates to, say, $10 million in 2025. So in 2026, for that same number of clients that created $10 million, did you keep all the money and grow it, or did you shrink? What that will tell you is that you're keeping and growing your customers, which in this market is important because you're investing in your current partnerships, right? And so we have to say, hey, you're trying to replace all of you're spending a lot of time and energy like selling a contract, and then you're focusing the eyesight on all the new shiny things. We need to get more and more and more new business. Well, here, that's not how it works, right? We need to invest in our partnerships. We need to drive student outcomes. We need to have long-term partnerships, because if you can keep that business and grow it and then add new, well, now you're a growing business versus
Right.
looking at net new. This is not a SaaS. This is not a SaaS high-tech marketplace, man. This is a place where you actually have to get your hands dirty, do the work for students and your partners to drive outcomes. But when you do that, I'll tell you what, man, that's the way to grow. So those are probably the big three, Rick, right now that I see across the board with my partners and then anybody else that I talk to.
Okay, take us home on this. If you've got a bunch of startups happening, there's a lot of innovation. Companies are dumping billions into AI firms. A lot of that is geared towards education. If a company wants to work with you, your team, be a part of your group, what do they need to do? How do they get in contact? Because I know you're very selective. So how do they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think LinkedIn's probably the best way. I get a lot of messages from founders, like really nice messages, which I appreciate that are thoughtful around, hopefully what I'm posting on LinkedIn so people can learn. I believe that's a platform to share knowledge, right? As you do as well, where hopefully someone learns something or they take something away that they can use. Yes, there's some celebrations on there and you want to do that type of stuff, but that's what I believe. And so reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone. I think the more people that we're able to meet together with each other, myself, you, any one of us, we should take every meeting if it makes sense and have some conversations. I'm always willing to give advice and share wisdom with anyone. I think when it comes to, working together, it starts with a conversation. And there's timing, there's circumstances. I am also
Sure.
doing some investing as well. So I do some angel investing in select companies. I bet on founders, as some of this stuff. But I think LinkedIn's the best way to get in touch with me. But what I would say is a little bit of a reframe. I appreciate anybody who might want to work with me, but what I appreciate most is anybody who wants to learn and try to do great for students and wants to invest in K-12 education. And for that, I'm willing to give them my time, anytime, any place, whether we work together or not.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. And for me, I am very selective with who I recommend or who I would even anybody would assume is a friend of mine or associate. And man, the more time we spend together, we're so aligned and so in it for the right reasons. And I would say, Ryan is one of the good ones. He's not about just the churn and burn, because there's a lot of people out there like that. And he's want to help schools. He wants to help companies. And so that's why I gravitate to conversations with you, because I'm learning a lot as I go. But it's also not about the bottom line dollar, right? In my heart, I'm still a public servant. I'm trying to turn into more of a businessman, but having good people around you, I do believe that good things happen when you help people. Service first, and then everything else will take care of itself. So, man, I appreciate your time today. I'm going to let you go, but we've got to continue. We've got to have a couple of part 2s and 3s. So I got about 13 other questions that I didn't ask when you were talking. But oh man, I want to ask that, but I know our time is limited. So man, I just appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Hey man, I appreciate you. Right back at you. Everything you said is a return to you. And what I'll say in very, very closing here is that the beautiful part, and I talk too much. That's why I couldn't ask all your questions. So I appreciate you bearing with me. Number 2, beautiful part about EdTech and education is that you can do that you can do well while doing good. It's the same thing, right? So if we can truly create not even solutions, because solutions assumes you're going to solve a problem. And I don't think any challenges here will ever be fully solvable, right? But when we make
Right.
progress together and show up as the right strategic partner for these districts and truly do a great job of the research and evidence, we can do well. That's why I love Edtech and education so much, Rick, is that we can keep talking about this, is that every minute and time that we spend getting better with the right intention is hopefully going to positively impact K-12 education. So that's the great part about having these conversations. We can talk about business, we can talk about helping students, but here it's the same thing. And that's cool. So I appreciate you. You're doing awesome. Can't wait to talk to you soon, and have a great spring break. You're really, it means a lot. The green shirt and the fact that you're grinding on break, it means a lot to me, man. I appreciate you.
If I was confident enough in my workout routine, I threw the bird jersey on and show the guns, but I'm not there yet. So we're always a work in progress, man. But appreciate appreciate you joining us. And if you're out there and you like what you heard and saw, subscribe, reach out to Ryan and I on LinkedIn, and we will see you next time on Solve for X.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on Solve for X. Please follow, like, and subscribe for more episodes. And until next time, keep asking the right questions and solving for X.